Marco in Vegas, and I'm joined by my partner in crime. You know him as Sig. You can follow him on Twitter at Sig Las Vegas. Also, a.k.a. The Shirt, Mr. Pick 4. Mr. Pick 5, nice day yesterday at Belmont. Sig, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Marco. It's good to have you back. While I'm on, though, I want to say a quick shout-out and thank you again to Sean Alvarez for joining me last week on Pony Pundits. I like having my usual co-host, Marco, here, but it was a great guest to come on. He came on at the last minute, so thanks again, Sean. Marco, great to have you back.
Hey, no problem. Yes, I had Sean on here for the thank you, and I did watch the show last week. Unfortunately, I watched the show from a hospital bed last week, guys, and so if you hadn't seen me around for a week on social media and such, I want to really big shout out to Sean Alvarez and a shout out to Kelly Stewart also for helping us in the show get Sean to come on. It was a great show last week you guys did, and after I saw how good Sean was, I told the doctors, they said, hey, man, I got to be back next week. So I'm just going to tell you guys right now that following this show today, I will fail a post-race drug test. They got me set up pretty good on painkillers and performance-enhancing drugs, so much so it would make Jorge Navarro and John Service jealous. Let me just tell you that. So we're ready to get this show rocking and rolling, and it's a big week for really Belmont. Go to Belmont Park this week, guys. That's where the big race is, and we're going to get to that in a moment. Before we do, just a quick reminder, don't forget all of the shows we've got at Wade. Daily shows twice daily. We're adding more shows all the time. You can check it out. 12 noon, 3 p.m. Eastern, every day, Monday through Friday. Of course, we're here every Friday, Sig and myself breaking down the ponies. Before we get to that race of the day at Belmont, some news and notes this week. Sig, what happened while I was out of action?
Oh, a lot of things that happened while you were out of action, Marco, but we'll just talk about the horses.
What do you got for me?
We had two races on the road to the Kentucky Derby this weekend. Well, actually, this week coming up. One Saturday at the Los Alamitos Derby is being run for a total of 34 points, with 20 points going to the first place finisher, 8, 4, and 2 to second, third, and fourth. We have a 5-horse field for this Kentucky Derby points race in California. You got to love these short fields in California. 80% of the field are going to get points on this coming out of the starting gate. Bob Baffert's Uncle Chuck was installed as your morning line favorite at 6-5.
Yeah, and LaSalle in a Derby prep race. It just doesn't even sound right. I'm sorry. Okay. LaSalle, hey, that was the home track for a very famous horse, California Chrome. That's where he did his training and everything. But I'm sorry. When I look up, I'm walking through the sports book, Sig, and I see LaSalle, I'm thinking quarter horse, and that's all I'm thinking from LaSalle. In those, how do they promote them? The best pick four in the business. They're pick fours on at the nighttime racing. But I think there was another track. We'll talk about that. I don't know if it's on your list, but I'll bring it up if you don't. When you talk about some pick fours and pick five, some gigantic payouts on overnight races that I've been seeing come this week from some tracks. But what else you got for us?
Well, speaking of Kentucky Derby points, the Indiana Derby will take center stage on Wednesday evening at Indiana Grand Racetrack. Once again, 34 points up for grabs. They have an expected 9-horse field. And once again, the points will be divided up between the top 4 finishers. So not often that the Indiana Derby is on the road to Kentucky Derby. Actually, this is the first time ever, but they're taking full advantage of it. And they have a couple interesting horses in that field.
I'll be looking forward to that. I know the Churchill Downs meet just finished up. What you got for us about that?
Yeah, the abbreviated Churchill Downs meet ended this past Sunday with 5 fewer days of racing than 2019. But impressively, the overall handle was up 53% year over year. It's just another indication that racing is doing itself a disservice by not trying to broaden its audience during this COVID shutdown and without a lack of sports. Horse racing's taking center stage. You'll find it on Fox Sports on the weekends. You'll find it on NBC Sports Network on the weekends, always on TVG. It's pretty much legal to wager on horse racing almost everywhere in the United States. So it's something that can definitely fill the void that sports is leaving right now.
What's more impressive about those numbers, Sig, you said a 53% increase over last year with 5 fewer days. The fact that it was 5 fewer days, yeah, that's a big deal, and you're up 53%. But what you forgot is one of the days that you did not have was that first Saturday in May, the Kentucky Derby. The handle just on that day alone, is not in that pool. And so that tells you how more impressive those numbers are if you dig deeper and put that in the equation.
I can't argue with that at all, Marco. It's going to be interesting actually to see with the Derby following that first Saturday in September this year, and if we have college football resume on schedule, if it's going to help or hurt the Derby handle with money being spent between other sports and wagered on other sports come September.
Good point.
Guys, but I'm sorry.
No, I did. You're just so excited because I know what's next on the list. This is Sig's. Let me tell you what. You want to talk about Christmas morning being a little kid? The night before Keeneland starts a meet, that's Sig, okay? He's like, for me, it'd be like a kid in a candy store. For Sig, Christmas morning. Hell, maybe a kid in a candy store too. Who are we kidding? Go ahead. What are you bringing us next?
Guys, by the time we air next Friday, the Keeneland summer meet, I know I said summer, will already be halfway over by the time we go to air next week. They'll have racing on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, just a 5-day meet. There's 11 stakes races spread out over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll have full card coverage for you guys each day. It's going to be great. And then when we wrap up the show next Friday, 1 hour after we wrap up the show, Del Mar kicks off their summer meet. I'm sure Marco's going to be all over that for you guys.
Yes. Yeah, that's mine. And Sig, I always told you, I had been to Keeneland before you were, and I told you, you got to go to a racetrack, you got to go to Keeneland. Keeneland was always my favorite racetrack that I'd ever been to until I made the trek to Del Mar. Del Mar, knocked them off the perch a little bit, but it's just such a great atmosphere down there. Now, unfortunately, everybody's not going to be able to enjoy things the way they have in the past. Hopefully, maybe by the fall meet, it'll be a different story. But if you ever get a chance, put Keeneland on your list of tracks to go to. Horses are athletes in Lexington and Louisville. There's just no other way to explain it. I got chills the first time I was there. I went for a Grand Circuit week. I went for the Bluegrass Stakes. So talk about, really maximizing things. My first trip to Keeneland was for the Bluegrass Stakes, which is one of the major, Kentucky Derby preps. And that day, whether it was just a regular race on the card or a stake race, when that horse came back to the winner's circle, everybody in the stands, they stand up and applaud the horse, just like somebody that just hit a game-winning home run. The horses are true athletes in Kentucky.
Very true. I mean, Lexington is definitely the home of horse racing in the United States, and anybody that makes a trip to Keeneland will find that out. You drive in there, ranches, horse ranches, and barns everywhere, and it's an amazing place to see.
And don't forget, I'll throw one more too. You can get, if you're in Lexington, you can get a 2-for-1. It's not as elaborate as Keeneland, but check out the Red Mile. That's one of the historic racetracks in harness racing. It's an older track, a lot of history there. They call it the Red Mile because of the red clay they have for the track surface. It's something else to throw in on your trip to Kentucky.
All right, guys. And one last note regarding Keeneland. We may see a filly take on the boys next weekend in the Bluegrass Stakes. A quote from trainer Ken McPeak this week hinted that Swiss Skydiver, who's won her last 3 outings against the other fillies, may be entered with Kentucky Derby points on the line. It is a 100-point race for first place here at Keeneland next week in the Bluegrass. She could just get herself a spot in the Kentucky Derby field. Yeah,
it's always a tough decision, and I'm torn on racing the boys, girls against the boys. When you're a younger horse, it's a bigger deal. This is Kentucky Derby. This is the best colts in the country. She's the best filly in the country. There's no question about that. So let's say you take a shot because she's already there. She could go for the Kentucky Oaks. You run in this race and you do win. Do you now go against all of the toughest boys for the history of it and, get that win? Kentucky Derby, the prestige, everything else? Or do you take the, almost sure win in the Kentucky Oaks? It's a tough decision for an owner. I mean, for Philly, syndication is not there like you're talking about a stallion, Sig, because unfortunately for the mares, they can only have one baby a year. That's just the way it is. A stallion can breed 200 mares over a breeding season. So there's always a lot more potential for the stallion in, the breeding barn. But who wouldn't want to have a horse out of Swiss Skydiver? Sorry about that. Great mare. I'd be anxious to see it. What do you think? You want to see her race against the boys?
I would not mind seeing her race against the boys. I think she's the top of the 3-year-old fillies right now. There's still Venetian Harbor out there. There's still a few other good fillies out there that she may need to face. But I think McPeak's a good trainer. I see him cross-entering her in both the Ashland and the Bluegrass. If he decides to run the Bluegrass and she does qualify, he'll still have the option of racing in the Kentucky Oaks on that Friday before the Kentucky Derby. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
All right, good stuff as always, Sig. Let's get to the race of the day. And you know what? Because there is no premier West Coast track going right now, no Santa Anita, just closed last week, no Del Mar coming up, got LaSalle. So really, Belmont's in no Churchill Downs. They're going to get all the attention this week, and that's going to factor into when we talk about our Pick 4 wager. And by the way, speaking of Pick 4, we will have the free Pick 4 there, and that Sig clubbed me all season on the show with the Pick 4s, but we are in the summer meet. I wasn't on last week. The last week we were on was the first of the summer meet. And we both hit it, but I hit it twice because I threw that extra small ticket just if some favorites came in there. So, Sig, the official leaderboard for the summer meet on the Pick 4 is 2-1, yours truly. Congratulations on winning, the spring meet. Congratulations, you won that one.
Well, thanks, Marco. I appreciate that. And we're just starting off the summer meet here. I have Keeneland coming. I have Saratoga coming. So we'll see here come the end of the summer who's on top.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, I let Sig pick the race of the day and the Pick 4, and then I go, handicap what he tells me. That's why we end up with some of these Pick 4s with so many of these maiden races, because Sig likes those a little better than I do. All right, let's go to race 9. This will be actually the second leg of the Pick 4. We'll give our actual selections on that in a bit, but this is the race of the day. It's the Met Mile. I'm looking forward to this, and this is a pretty darn good field of horses. I ended up almost singling a horse in this race, and when we get to our Pick 4s, will be singling a horse on a smaller ticket. But let's run down the field, get your thoughts. I'll counterpunch back and forth. The number 1 horse in this race is the red-hot Chad Brown. Chad Brown is lighting it up, and you could build a nice Pick 4 ticket almost in this sequence, just taking on Chad Brown horses, and you'd probably be live. What do you think, Sig? This is one of his horses, Network Effect, morning line odds of 8-1. What do you think of Network Effect?
Well, Marco, I think back to your Chad Brown comment real quick. There are people that play the New York circuit that bet just the Chad Brown horses. There are people that bet just the IRAD horses. And considering IRAD's riding for Chad Brown a lot this weekend, there's going to be tickets just with IRAD and Chad Brown horses on them. But
and ironically, it is IRAD on this one.
This is a nice 8-horse field, and the Met Mile always seems to have a good field. This year is definitely the most impressed I've been with this field in a while. 8 horses, 2 are coming in from the Carter at Belmont, 2 are coming in from the Oaklawn Handicap, 2 are coming in from the Westchester Stakes at Belmont. McKenzie comes across country from Santa Anita, from the Triple Bend. But Network Effects are 1 horse here. He's 8-1 on your morning line, the 4-year-old colt. Like we just said, Irad's riding for Chad Brown. He ran second in the Carter, which was over a sloppy track, to Vacoma, who's also in this field. You always have to consider when Irad teams up with Chad Brown, as they win 24% of the time when he rides for him, they're in the money an impressive 61% of the time. To me, though, the Network Effects a second-tier stakes runner. It's a very good horse, but I see him in grade 2s, I 3s. I think he's in a little bit over his head here, just based on speed and based on the other horses in this field and the grade 1 successes. So I don't see Network Effect hanging with this crowd of horses on Saturday.
I agree with you, and that's the point I was going to make. He is a good horse. I think that, when he's in those grade 2s and grade 3s, just a step below the top-notch horses in the country, he's right there. He has to have everything go perfectly for him, I think, to get here. His style is not going to be conducive. He likes to, come from a little bit further back. This last race, he was able to get second, but it was a distant second. He beat the rest of the entire field in that last race. The best way he had is for be at all. So Network is coming on aggressive last time. Grade 1 state. Now, again, it was Network Effect to beat, and Network Effect was second best in that race, and we said he's just a notch below the top horses, and he beat him by 7 lengths. Not to take anything away from Bossuet, 2 good starts this season, and that was impressive. His last one out. Do you like him in this race? He's 5-2. He's definitely one of the major players. Is he the horse to beat?
I don't want to say he's the horse to beat, but I can't let him beat me here. When we get to the pick 4s, we'll get into that. I am using Vacoma here in my pick 4. You have to look at this. I mean, this horse finished 12th last year in the Kentucky Derby. He was off for 10 months before returning with back-to-back victories in the Sir Shackleton at Gulfstream, and then a very impressive win here back at Belmont a couple weeks ago in the Carter as he pulled away from the field and won by 7 lengths. If he runs back to that last effort, he's definitely a contender in here. I'll be using him, but I'm not sure if that was an effect of the sloppy track he had that day. If you guys remember that day when the Carter ran, they basically had a downpour during the course of the race meet that day, and by the time they got to the feature race here, that track was soaked. And if you go back and watch a replay, he was actually the only clean horse left at the end. I mean, he kept himself rated real well and then pulled away at the end.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, Sig. This is a horse that's going to be in the mix. He's either going to be, I think he's going to be setting just off the pace. This is something when we set up the race I should have started with. The pace of this race, it's an 8-horse field, but almost everybody in this race likes to be on the front end or sitting just off of it. And somebody's going to have to, who's not going to get their way? And that's a situation, I think here, who's going to be the horse that sets the pace? Who's going to be that horse that makes the first move and challenge the pace setter? And then we've always talked about it, Sig, when you get a horse that puts away that first pesky foe, you always got to look to see who the horse is coming off the back of that horse, to pick up the pieces. I think there's going to be 2 horses that are going to be in that scenario. And when we get to it is why I like one of them a little bit more than the other. I think one of the horses that's going to get a lot of the talk is the next horse, the 3-horse, McKenzie. This is a horse, a lot of people, there's an old adage out there. Bob Baffert, Mike Smith, if they hook up outside of they're very good if they hook up in California, but if they hook up outside of California, it's almost a lock, pure money. You just follow these two when they ship together. And Mackenzie does make the trip across country from Santa Anita, coming off a race that hadn't raced since February. And I point out the February race that was the horse's first race since November. And that race was November, of course, was the Breeders' Cup. And then they went to Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and then come back. So we know what that trip takes out of horses going to Dubai. Then to come back, have the shutdown, horse, schedule gets altered and comes back and then races as good as he did in his return. This is a hard horse not to like in this race. What do you think about Mackenzie?
Marco, initially I wanted to single Mackenzie in this spot. If you throw his last effort that you just spoke about in Dubai, where he was eased back in February, this horse hasn't missed the exacta since November of 2018. That's a year and a half of when you race, you're going to finish first or second. I mean, that's impressive. Also, this horse should have won the Met Mile last year. If you go back and watch that trip, he ran second to Matoli. He had a really bad trip with traffic. Every time he tried to find the hole closed up on him. He had to check a few times down the stretch, and he still only basically lost out by half a length to Matoli, who's a very good racehorse. But if he had a clean trip in last year's Met Mile, I think Mackenzie wins this. He should improve off the effort in the triple bends. It was definitely a prep going to 7 furlongs because it's the first time they had him go that's short since November of 18. He's, like I said, he's my pick to win in here. I can't single him, though, because there are some very talented horses in this field, and I don't want to let them beat me on the pick 4 ticket.
I agree with you. And to point out last year's Met Mile, and you talked about Matoli, he stole that race last year with the fractions. And even going into slow fractions, moderate fractions, it was a race that Mackenzie, if he gets through clean mid-stretch instead of, in the shadow of the wire, he wins the race anyway. So, yes, I agree with you. Moving to the 4 horse. Is this the horse you're singling? Hog Creek Hustle?
I am not singling Hog Creek Hustle at 30-1 your morning line. Jose Ortiz is hopping back aboard, though, for trainer Vicky Foley. Like I said on Network Effect, I think this horse is in over its head. Hog Creek Hustle has one move, and that's a huge close. And he is going to get a lot of pace up front in this race, but there are a couple horses in here, mainly Mackenzie and Code of Honor, that had that tactical speed that are going to be sitting just off that pace. So when that pace does start to break down, they're going to make their move. He's not going to have the fast early pace and tiring horses to pass down the stretch here. So Hog Creek Hustle normally against quality company, and this is a very much a quality field. Hog Creek Hustle doesn't hit the board here.
You know what? When you're right, said, yeah, this horse is a total pitch. And I couldn't help but have a little fun there with Hog Creek Hustles. Sometimes I look at a program and I see a horse entered in a race, and I sit there and I question why are they putting this horse in a race? And this is one of those instances. Now, the next horse, Sig, I am going to talk a little bit about this horse because this is my choice to win the race. And I like this horse a lot in here. And I know, Mackenzie, you were considering singling Mackenzie, but you didn't want to have, Vacoma beat you, or I'm assuming Code of Honor beat you. I was going to single Code of Honor, but I didn't want to have Mackenzie beat me. And this is a spot where we talk about you've got to, in your mind, visualize what the trip is going to be, how the race is going to play out, where everybody's going to be in the race at particular points in time of the race. And we haven't got to this horse yet, but there's a horse in this race that races only one way. And, he's got to go to the front, go as long and as hard as he can. If you can beat him, you beat him. If not, he's going to hold on. We'll talk about him more in detail, but that'll be the 8 Warriors Charge. He's going to be the horse on the front end. Then it's going to be Vacoma and a slew of other horses that like to be right around there. One of those horses is going to be Mackenzie. And I think the situation is going to be is Vekoma is going to be the closer horse early. It'll be Warrior's Charge and Vekoma and then Mackenzie. And I think it's going to be Mackenzie that's going to come with that first attack. After Vekoma puts Warrior's Charge away, Mackenzie's going to pounce on Vekoma because Warrior's Charge is not going to give it up easily. This is a horse that can carry his speed for a good distance. Once Vekoma gets wore down by Mackenzie, this energy that Mackenzie's going to use getting by Vekoma, it's going to be a horse flying at the end. And this is a race this is a true closer in Code of Honor. He's going to be sitting, mid-pack, but he will be coming with the first run from the closers. And I think he's going to catch Mackenzie in the stretch after Mackenzie engages in that battle. And I don't care if it's Warrior's Charge in Vekoma or it's Warrior's Charge in Mackenzie. I actually hope, for my sake, because my win bet's going to be on Code of Honor, either way, I think it's going to soften those two horses for the battle Vekoma and Mackenzie's going to have early in the stretch. And I think Code of Honor picks them all up in the final, 100 yards and pulls the victory out. I like Code of Honor. I like that first race back. Got a race over the track. Hadn't raced since last November. And they just, they still got to win with the horse. That was a prep race. They weren't full tilt. They were leaving something in the tank. This is what they were pointing for. I like Code of Honor. Full disclosure, I liked him in the Breeders' Cup too, and he threw his worst race of his life. That's the only bad race that I can go back and look at this horse. Tell me why I'm wrong on Code of Honor.
I can't tell you you're wrong, Marco, because I'm using Code of Honor here as my second choice. I see either him or Mackenzie making the move you're discussing, but I see a little different pace setup early. The three horses we haven't talked about yet, I see all of them vying for the early lead in this race and setting some fast early fractions. So we're going to get to them all, but I think Vekoma is actually going to be in the second tier of horses with Code of Honor and Mackenzie waiting to pounce, but it's going to really depend on how fast they go up front and who decides to go first. That really comes down to a jockey's decision, and out of those Mackenzie, Code of Honor, and Vekoma, you're talking about Mike Smith, J.J. Castellano, and John Velasquez. There's a lot of years and a lot of experience there. It's going to come down to who makes the best decision when. And at this point, I'm still leaning towards Mike Smith to make that decision. He knows Mackenzie well, rides him a lot. That's why I'm leaning towards Mackenzie. But Code of Honor, back to Code of Honor at least. Horse has only missed the board twice in his career. He finished fourth in the Mucho Macho Man Stakes at Gulfstream to kick off his 3-year-old campaign. Then he finished seventh in last year's Breeders' Cup Classic as he faded against some horses that were a little fresher coming down the stretch. He looked good winning the Westchester last month, over endorsed, who we're going to be discussing next. It was definitely a prep for this race. He should get the early pace that he desires to close into, and it's going to really come down, in my opinion, to a battle between Mackenzie and Code of Honor, and it's going to come down to who moves first and who's got a little bit more in the tank, in my opinion.
I agree, Sig. I just I can see the two of us screaming at the TV, you in Pennsylvania, me out here in Vegas right now, Saturday, when Mackenzie and Code of Honor are battling it out. Maybe Ice Cold Exacta? Box?
Not sure. I say box because I'm not sure which way it's coming.
Yeah, okay. And let's go to that number 6 horse endorsed. Belmont trainer, Joel Rosario, a guy races very well at Belmont. This is a horse that, you can't fault anything about this horse other than the fact, like we talked with the one horse early on, I just think he's a notch below. I don't think he's a grade 1 stakes horse. I think, grade 2, grade 3, he's there. I just don't see him here getting the job done. Tell me why not.
Well, I endorsed this 10, like you said, 10-1 the morning line. He tried to take him wire to wire last time in the Westchester, and Code of Honor barely got to him. at the wire. That was a little bit of a shorter race here, though. He definitely can run with the second-tier stakes horses, like Marco said, and I don't see him being a factor in this field, but I do see Rosario trying the same thing. I see Modern Rosario have a plan to get this horse out front, play come catch me. What's one thing in the Westchester, it's another thing in the Met Mile. He's dealing with a lot more quality horses in here. I don't think this horse has the stamina to sustain the early pace that he's going to see between Warrior's Charge, and I believe Mr. Freeze, the next horse we're talking about, is going to be in that early pace as well. I'm not using endorsed here. I think he's a good horse. I think he has some wins left in him. I see those being in grade 2s and grade 3s though throughout the rest of the year.
Agree with you 100%. He's not on my ticket. The next horse, Mr. Freeze, this is a horse that, again, we could classify him as one of those horses in, just off that tier, but he has raced in several stake races. I mean, you look down his card, he's danced every grade stakes there are, 1, 2, and 3s. The 3 times that he's raced in a grade 1, and you go back, the first time he raced in a grade 1, that's back in September of 2018, he did not fare well. Finished up the track, 8th beat, 28 lengths. But then the other 2 times, he ran 3rd November at Churchill Downs, and then a grade 1 stakes early this year, January, Gulfstream Park, finished 2nd. So this is a horse that I think is improving, is a horse that's going to be coming. He has the style where he's going to be off the pace. He doesn't have the speed. You mentioned about maybe him being up there. I don't think he has the speed to go anywhere near what we're going to see from Warrior's Charge and the endorsed that we just talked about. So maybe he'll be one of those ones that could pick up the piece bottom end of a try or super, but that's the best case scenario I see for him. He does have a very hot jockey. Manny Franco's having, a dream season so far, and he's making all the right moves. This is an up-and-coming, jock. I don't know. And I know in the past you've been a fan of Dale Romans. Is this one of those times?
This is actually. Mr. Freeze is my long shot candidate in here. Like I said, guys, I'm on McKenzie. Code of Honor 2nd. I do have Vekoma 3rd. Mr. Freeze is on my pick 4 ticket. Couple reasons. First, this horse is always game. He's always ready to battle. He doesn't back down from a fight. Look at his PPs. He's always right there at the finish. And he's always, it's not like he's finishing 3rd but 7 lengths back. He's finishing 3rd and like 3/4 of a length back. He won the mile at the mile distance at Gulfstream Park. In the Gulfstream Park mile, Manny Franco was in the irons. He's gone 3 races at the mile distance, 2 wins and a 2nd. And Dale Romans knows how to get a horse ready for a stakes race. He doesn't enter him into a spot where he doesn't think they're going to compete. Mr. Freeze, I think, is a very live horse on Saturday. Is he the quality of the other 3 that we talked about? Maybe not, but maybe he is, and maybe he pays. 8 to 1 the morning line. This horse is going off 12 to 1, 14 to 1 or better, I think. So if you're looking to make some money in this horse and think the upset's occurring, Mr. Freeze is your long shot.
Well, I agree with you, Sig. When we get to our actual picks of the race, I do have him on my ticket as my 4th choice in the field. The last one is the horse we've been making a lot of references to, and that is the 8 Warrior's Charge. This is a one-way horse. It's going to bust out of the gate from post 8. Only one way to go. Going to get him fired up. Once he got him going, he's not going to back him down, and I don't think he'll be able to rate. And I think, as you said, Endorsed wants to go with him. The question is going to be, will one of them let the other one go to try a little bit to try to get soft fraction? Because the only way the 6 or the 8 have any shot is if you get one of those races where nobody goes out to challenge, and then they're able to get a cheap half, and before you know it, you look up at the timer, and you're sitting there with tickets on closers, and you're going, oh shit, we're in trouble. I see no way that happens in this race. Tell me how they don't have fast fractions.
I don't. When I originally played this race out in my head, Warriors Charge and Endorse are going to the front. I do think Mr. Freeze tries to go with them at least early on. But like we said, horses like Vekoma, McKenzie, Code of Honor are all tactical. they're not going to let them get that far out in front. They're also not going to go at crazy fractions with them. So if the two of them get out and go crazy fractions, they're going to stay just close enough that they know they have the horse to get to them. So Warrior's Charge definitely will be leading this race at one point, probably right out of the gate. After that, it's going to be a battle between him and Endorsed, and they're both going to run out of stamina, and we're going to see a couple horses come down here and clean up the mess they created.
All right. My numbers in this race are 5, 3, 2, 7. But when we get to the pick 4, which we're going to head to now, I'm only going 3 deep in this race, 5, 3, 2. How do you have this race, Sig?
I got 3, 5, 2, 7. I think the 3, 5 exacta box is going to get you a winning exacta. I would definitely try box the 3, 5, 2, 7 though. If something weird does happen, I think those are the horses you see finishing 1, 2, 3.
All right, Sig, we're going to run through the rest of the pick 4 card so we stay on time today. And the 8th race, I think this is the most wide open race of the 4-leg sequence. Even though there are horses, that we talked about, like in the next race, which we just talked about, race 9, the second leg, there's 3 horses that are going to get all of the money, and you make solid cases for all of those 3 horses. Here, you can make solid cases for 5 or 6 horses. I had to narrow it down, and I've got a long shot in this race for my top choice, and that's the horse I'm going to be rooting for because I think that's what gets me the ticket. And my top choice in this race is the 4, Seismic Wave. And what I'm going to say about Seismic Wave, and me and you were chatting a little bit last night on back and forth by text as we were looking at this. I'm telling you from a horse owner, Seismic Wave's last race, that was his first race of the year. He had not raced since October of last year. Bill Mott's the trainer. You've got Joel Rosario, great rider here in New York. And this horse, they sent him out for a tightener. That was a setup race. This horse needed a race. And when they sent him out, it wasn't Joel Rosario on him. They put a lesser jockey on. No disrespect to Mr. Cancel, but he got canceled for this mount. Okay. He's not Rosario. Okay. They just wanted a jockey that was going to do what they told him to do. And what they told him to do was sit with this horse, give him an easy trip, and then let him pace through the lane. Just make sure the tank is full for next week. Don't bring the horse back with an empty tank of gas. Well, if you go back and watch that race, and we've talked so many times, Sig, about watching race replays and know what to look for in different things. Watch the move this horse made when he finally got him to daylight and let him loose. This horse was full of run, and that's what you want when you're going into a big race. You want your horse brave. You want your horse full of confidence, and you want that horse flying in the stretch, and they did that. That's my long shot horse in this race, but yet I'm going 5 deep when we get to the numbers. Who's your top choice?
I went 4 deep in here, and I think I might finally have a situation where God Stormy is ready to go. The 7-horse God Stormy is 7-2 on your morning line. Mark Cassie's been entering her and then scratching her out of a few races here as the turf got softer. The Belmont turf, basically hasn't got water in a week and is pretty much firm. We are going to get rain late today and overnight. I don't think it's going to be enough to really soften that turf up to a point where she's not going to like it. The now 5-year-old mare hasn't seen the winner's circle since the matriarch at Del Mar back in December. But she's the old lady in here, one of 3 5-year-old mares racing. I think she's going to return to her winning ways. She's a great horse. It's just getting the right setup for her at this point. She wants the firm turf, and she is a specialist at this mile distance here. All 8 of her career wins have come at the mile. I think she's going to be good value on Saturday with all the Chad Brown entries taking money. I have Get Stormy here on top.
Sig and I were texting back and forth last night. As I said, I get a text, Stormy likes it stiff, and I didn't know if he was at the strip club telling me, but then I remembered they're all closed, so it wasn't that. And I said, what are you talking about? And I got this whole thing about the turf, and that's how detailed Sig goes. He's checking out the turf. Is it stiff, firm, soft? And nobody likes anything soft. So that's you got get Stormy. So I have her on my ticket. My ticket in this race, Sig. And again, I want one of the bombers to come in, but I got 4, 7, 2, 9, 5. Where are you?
I won't, like I said, got Stormy on top at the 7. I got the 5, Social Paranoia. I have the 9, Value Proposition, one of the Browns, and 2, Valid Point, another one of the Browns in here.
Okay. I hate for you to miss that first leg there, buddy, if the 4 lights up the tote board, but you'll get text about it.
I know that.
As I get them the other way as well. All right. We already talked the 9th race. We'll recap these here at the end. Let's go to race 10, another stake race. It's the Manhattan. Who's your top choice, Sig?
I landed on the 2, Rock Emperor, 5-1 on your morning line. And the reason I landed on Rock Emperor is the 5-1 morning line on here. There's a couple Chad Browns in here, actually 3. And basically, Rock Emperor has got the longest odds on the morning line at 5-1. John Velasquez is riding here. Basically, she was just nosed out in her last start at Santa Anita in the Whittingham before being DQ'd the 3rd. She looked fantastic closing in that race, and she's been continuing to train well at Belmont over the past week since that race. I think it comes down to one of the brown horses here, and I like the price, like I said, on this one. I'm assuming Irad has choice of mounts, and he did decide to stick with Instilled Regard, who's my second choice in here. That's the only thing that concerns me is he chose to ride Instilled Regard over Rock Emperor, but I got to land on Rock Emperor at 5-1 on my top choice.
And that's what's going to get us the price on Rock Emperor, because that's one of the best handicapping angles, there is. These guys make their money based on percentage of earnings that the horse earns in that race. So they want what's, in their opinion, the best horse in the race. I think he made a mistake here. I agree with you. I have Rock Emperor on top as well. What I like, and I think too often with Jockey, and it's a pet peeve of mine with my own racehorses, is jockeys are too concerned about the here and now. And Instilled Regard right now might be a tad better because, it's had races under its belt. Rock Emperor, that was, second start. The start before that was March 21st, and before that hadn't raced since August of 2019. So this is third start of the form cycle. I agree with you. Rock Emperor is my top choice in here as well, and I think we will get that price because of the IRAD money going to the 1. I have 2-5-1 in this leg. Where are you?
I went 2-1-5, and I threw in the 4 there, Sadler's Joy. Hasn't seen the winner's circle since last November, but he's always there in the end. I mean, I'm not going to let that horse knock me out of the pick 4. I went 4 deep here, 2-1-5-4. And just a quick note on the 1 Instilled Regard. This horse needs a fast pace to close into. I don't see this race setting up as fast on the early end. I do see some closers coming here, but I don't see the fast early pace that a horse like Instilled Regard is going to need. And guys, just think about the conversations Mark and I had over the past. We talked about 3 of these 4 races. We're going 3 and 4 deep in these races because there are quality 3 and 4, 5 horses that can win these things. This pick 4 tomorrow is going to pay.
It is, and I had Sadler's Joy as my 4th choice in this race, Sig, but I had to narrow my ticket down some because I went so deep in the first leg. And I just think that, if the horse beats me on my pick 4, that would be the one I think that would upset the apple cart for me. Going to the last leg, Sig. This is a very good stake race again. We got 1.25 miles on the dirt. Nice field. Number 1, Tacitus is the favorite, 9-5. This is a horse that he's a gray, and I've bet him so many times that he's caused me grays because he has a knack. He likes to win, but he likes to finish second too a lot. And Where are you at on this horse?
I'm just trying to figure out if you still have Hair's Turn Gray.
Oh, wow.
Guys, I landed on Tacitus here as a single.
Poor horse.
John Velasquez is riding for Belmont. It's hard for me to believe this horse hasn't seen the winner's circle since last year's Wood Memorial at Aqueduct in April. And that's probably because he's always showing up in these big races, but not getting the finished. I think that changes on Saturday. The blinkers go back on, and the horse has shown the ability when focused. He's definitely the class of this field. The distance isn't going to be an issue. If he avoids trouble, he wins this race, in my opinion. The field's full of what I call slower horses and horses that don't want to go this distance of the 1.25 miles. Tacitus has shown no problem with the distance, and he's faster than the other horses in this field. It's his race to lose. I singled the one Tacitus. How'd you see it, Marco?
Well, I'll tell you, with the blinkers on, simply put, yes, they need this horse to be closer to the pace. And if you look at that last race and go back and look at it, the race was over for him at the break. And you look at all of his other races, this horse never is that far back. He was way out of it. And now with the one post, it's doubly more, important for him to break well out of the gate, because when you're pinched down inside and you get stuck, you might not get buried back as far as he was in that race. I think it was a 13 horse field, but in this race, because of the quality of horses in here, and if you're trapped at the rail, you may never get good daylight to bob and weave through horses to get the clean trip. So they're going to need to break from the gate. I like Tacitus. I couldn't make him a single just because of, the disappointments, and seems like, we're always giving him excuses. Well, he had a bad trip. He had this, he had that. Yes, he has. He might be the unluckiest horse alive. If you look at the programs where they put the little indicator for troubled trips, that's should be his logo. I'm counting right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. He had a stretch of 4 straight troubled trips. And then, of course, had troubled trip last time again. This is a horse that, if everything goes right, he wins open daylight. And we're going to be saying, why did I even put any other horses in this leg? But if something goes wrong, it might be, here we go again. So for me in this race, Sig, my numbers are 1, 7, 6, 4. And looking at the 7 horse in this race, this is my value horse for me. 8-1, Just Whistle. This is a horse that 3 starts this year. You look at its speed figures, the horse is getting better every race. Now, granted, making a big jump class-wise compared to these other horses. So he's got to make it. He's going to have to make another jump this week. But he's getting the best jock up to get that jump. This would be a horse that I would love to see this price, and because of the money that the favorite's going to get, I still should get it the worst, 5, 6-1. If, Irad's getting the money. I mean, there's certain drivers, jocks at every track that you could put them on a mule and people are going to bet them. And so he's going to take some money, but this is a horse that could make a price in this race, and that's why I have him second. How do you see the rest of the race? I know he's your single here, but who do you have second, third?
If I had to go second, it would definitely be the 6th Sir Winston. Came in here off a layoff, and then got a prep here in the flat-out stakes. He did lose to Moretti, who's also in this field, who's going to be, I think you're going to see him ready to take some money here coming in off the win. I don't think he's fast enough to compete with this field, but Sir Winston would be my second choice in here, and my third choice in here would be the 4 Mr. Buff. Yeah,
I went this race 4 deep with this race as far as my 4 horses for the race itself. I've got 1, 7, 6, 4. For my pick 3, though, I'm only going 3 deep, and that is 1, 7, 6. Sig, I'm going to run my numbers for you for my pick 4, and then I'll let you give me your numbers. And first leg, as I said, going 5 deep. We're going 4, 7, 2, 9, 5. Second leg, 5, 3, 2. Third leg, 251. Fourth leg, 176. Now that ticket, 50-cent pick four, will cost $67.50. I'm going to have you spend another $7.50. We're going to spend doing my old buddy Jeff, we had on the show, Jeff Ziddick, doing his formula of putting a couple favorites together in singles. In case we do get a little chalky, it'll help us cover the ticket. But I'm telling you, even if it does come up chalk, this pick four is going to pay, triple digits. We're going to be 100 plus. It's not going to be, that we spent 67 and hit a $38 pick four. There's too many good horses where there's decisions to make. So my $7.50 ticket is the 47295 in the first leg, but in that second leg, I am singling the 5 Code of Honor, and then 251 in the third leg, and then in this last leg, just singling the 1. That's a $7.50 ticket. That's the insurance policy ticket for the favorites. So we're spending a grand total of $75. And again, 2 reasons why this pick 4 I think is going to pay good money, Sig, before we get to yours. Again, the sequence of it and the competitiveness of these races. And second of all, because Belmont really doesn't have any competition on Saturday. Last week and the other weeks, you had Churchill Downs taking a lot of action. You had Santa Anita taking action. They're the centerpiece this week. And granted, they were when they had the Belmont Stakes and so forth, but yet those other 2 tracks were taking a lot, of play those days as well. That's not going to be the case this week. They're the headliner. They're going to have inflated pools, and I think you can stretch a little bit here to try to get a nice pick 4.
Don't disagree with you at all on that, Marco, but when it comes to the standings on the pick 4 for the summer meet, if Marco keeps giving out 2 tickets every week and I give 1, I'm never going to catch him, even if my 1 hits it is 2 lose.
Hey, you're allowed to make a little small, we're keeping that bonus ticket as, chump change, $7.50. That's, coffee and a donut at Starbucks. Come on.
I'm not going to argue with you. I had a $5 ticket that was live through the first 3 legs last week that unfortunately burned up in the final leg, which would have been a nice return for the viewers. But with this week, like Marco said, there's going to be a lot of money wagered at Belmont on Saturday. This pick 4 is going to pay. It's tough to narrow down how he's playing a favorites ticket. I'm not sure, because I'm not sure who the favorites really are in these races. But my pick 4 went 4 by 4 by 4 by 1. We have the 7-5-9-2 with the 3-7, with the 2-1-5-4, with singling the 1 Tacitus in the final leg. That's a $32 ticket for 50 cents, guys.
Sure you don't want to throw a second, $1 ticket out there anyway? A cheap ticket there that's giving you the opportunity.
I had a hard time narrowing these races down to 4. I don't have any favorites.
Oh, good stuff. So you've got, I'm spending a little more money than Sig, but I have not been in action all week. Okay. I got a little more in the bankroll. So we're spending a little bit more money. So I hope you guys, appreciate the effort there, and let's get this one home. I think it's going to be a fun day at Belmont for these races. And the best part of it is we had 4 stake races for the sequence. There's other stake race on the card at Belmont, and it's just that these races were so competitive. They put the better ones in the back just for that that reason. You want to get that late pick 4, and let's face it, the late pick 4s, the last races, those are the races everybody likes to get their little bailout on. They're gonna, if they're down for the day, they're chasing. They're smart on how they set these races up, and you want to keep the crowd there for the best races. That's always a tried and true tradition in horse racing. Sig, I got to tell you, it's fun being back in the saddle, so to speak. We'll see how that post-race positive test goes, see how that goes. And you got big plans for the weekend?
I'm watching racing. I mean, that's all I've been doing during this quarantine is watching racing, and it's going to be a huge day tomorrow. It's in the mid-90s here right now, and unlike Vegas mid-90s, it is humid as hell. So I'm staying inside as much as I can. Got some good racing to watch. Guys, we do have basically a free spot in the early pick 5 tomorrow in one of those stakes races. If you take a look at the card, you'll definitely know who I'm talking about. But you can grab my sheet. I'll have full card Belmont selections for you up later tonight for tomorrow's card. And we'll have Belmont as well on Sunday. Like I said, next week's all Keeneland, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then we'll be moving to Saratoga. So looking forward to it. Things are getting back to normal somewhat.
All right. Yeah, I'll have a card up tomorrow for you guys. We'll have some of the spot races from Belmont, and I'll have some spot races from other tracks along with it on my sheet. And guys, I don't talk politics here on the show at all, but I am going to talk about something. And I know a lot of people are frustrated. They don't want to wear masks when they're out and so forth and that. I want to tell you guys, you need to be smart, okay? Because you might not be just protecting yourself, okay? And I know we got a lot of young viewers watching us and that. And the stuff that's going on in our 2 neighboring states, for me, SIG out here, California and Arizona, is just plain stupid. The cases of COVID are on the rise. They shut Arizona bars down again. Same in California, LA County. And all those people are going to be flying to Vegas, flocking to Vegas here this week because of the 4th of July, because everything else is shut down. Be smart, guys. Social distance, because you might not be the one that gets the problem, but you might be carrying it to somebody that is weak or has, a weakened immune system. I can tell you right now that if somebody would have, if I would have contracted COVID in the past week because of the surgery and illness and stuff, end of story. I would have been a permanent scratch. So not necessarily yourself, but think of somebody else. Think of somebody else's loved one that you might have, that passing it on to somebody that's a worker that goes home to their family and has somebody elderly. Be smart. Have fun. I know we're all penned up. It's 4th of July. This has been a year to we want to freaking forget. And I get that. And we all want to blow off some steam. Let's blow it off smartly. That's my rant for this week, guys. We'll be back next week. Sorry to get on my pedestal, but, I can't. It's my show in SIGs. So, and I got the microphone. SIG can't mute me. SIG, have a good week. Good luck with the races this weekend. We'll be talking through text all weekend, as we always do. And I hope the horse that you left out, mine doesn't run you over, and vice versa. On the one I left out, I hope you don't run me over.
All right. Good luck, guys.
All right. Till next week. This is the Pony Pundits. Hope to see you in the winner's circle. Social distancing with a mask and lots of winning tickets. Talk to you guys next week.